On today's episode of Project PS2, we venture out to London and visit the very first computer exchange CEX store to ever open. We picked up a nice little stack of PS2 games for Project PS2. Let's get into the video. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Command and Console. My name is Jason. Today is another episode of Project PS2. We went to the very first computer exchange CEX shop to ever open. It's got a really cool front panel with the old logo on it. It looks cool. I will have to say though, overall it was a bit of a disappointing visit. It's pretty much like any other CEX store in the UK. It just has it still retains the old original logo on the front. That's all you're really going to go there for, to be honest. But did it have the spoils? Did it have the good stuff for PS2? I think it did. I found some really cool stuff that's not on the list and stuff that is on the list. We finally picked up some cool stuff, all complete with manual. So let's have a look what London, the very first CEX shop, had to offer. Let's have a look. They had an upstairs section and a downstairs section in this CEX store. They had a pretty good PS2 selection. Not the best I've seen, not the worst I've seen, but a pretty decent overall selection. As you can see, there's some really cool stuff in there. It was kind of hit and miss because there was some stuff that didn't have manual and there was stuff that did have manual on the shelf. So I wasn't sure whether they would keep, some people keep it behind the desk, some people don't. You don't know, but let's kick it off with my very first pickup from the very first CEX store, and that would be 007 Agent Under Fire. I'm not really a big James Bond fan, if I'm honest. I remember watching GoldenEye and Tomorrow Never Dies when I was a kid and playing obviously the N64 GoldenEye game. I played that a lot as well as a kid. But not being a fan of the films doesn't mean you cannot be a fan of the games, and I will put it out there that I think the EA era of 007 games are really underrated. This was the first one they put out, Agent Under Fire. I think this is a ton of fun. I played this a couple of years ago. I emulated it through an emulator, and it was just a bunch of fun to play. I had a great time with it. So I'm really happy to play this on the proper hardware and give it a proper go. Most of these EA 007 games, I thought they were just fun. They were really fun. So this is one of my favourites, if I would go as far as saying. Agent Under Fire. Complete in box. Really happy about it. Yeah, just a really fun Bond game in my opinion. That's 007 Agent Under Fire. Following the Bond theme, we picked up what it might be my favourite Bond game. Regardless of GoldenEye, regardless of Nightfire, which I know a lot of people find is the best. This is probably my favourite one, and that is 007 Everything or Nothing. This game was such a great third-person 007 action game for me. It had everything I wanted in there. It had the great third-person shooting, and then it had the awesome driving sequences. Everything you would want from a Bond game. I just thought this game was put together seamlessly, and I had to get it for the collection because, like I said in my very early videos, there's going to be games I forget that are on the system or just don't think about when I'm compiling a list for this kind of stuff. So there's going to be loads of games I pick up for this system that are not on my created list, but I digress. 007, Everything or Nothing is my favourite Bond game ever. I think it's just fantastic. I think it plays great. It still plays great now. And yeah, everything you would want from a James Bond game is in here. And it's a Pierce Brosnan Bond game, so that kind of hits kind of slightly over the nostalgia era for me, because I grew up with the Pierce Brosnan Bond films like GoldenEye and Tomorrow Never Dies. But yeah, this one is probably my favourite, and it's great. I'm really happy to have it in the PS2 collection. Next up is a game that I picked up the remake fairly recently, and I thought to myself, you know what, I got the remake, I've not played it yet, but let's get the original to match up with it, and that is 13. Yeah, this game is a really fun comic book inspired first person shooter. Leans heavily into the comic book side of things. It's almost like you're playing each page of a comic book. It's really well stylized like that. I really enjoy this one. It's really fun. I've heard the remake isn't as good as I heard. The remake was quite terrible, to be fair, when it came out, but I thought I'll grab the original and have it side by side with the remake. I got the remake on PS5 and this is on PS2, so yeah, 3 generations apart. But yeah, this one's a really good game. Really recommend this one if you've not played the original. Complete in manual. The manual's in really nice condition. Really happy about that. That's 13. Really good shooter. If you like your shooters, you want something a bit more kind of quirky and comic booky, 13 is definitely a game I really recommend. Next up is an arena shooter that I didn't really kind of discover until after I discovered the sequels, sort of. Unreal Tournament, really like this one. I think it's really fun, but it wasn't my introduction to the series. My introduction to the series was the Xbox exclusive Unreal Championship, multiplayer focused arena shooter. Obviously back in the day I didn't have Xbox Live as a kid, so I kind of just like played it with bots, but I had so much fun with it. The sequel to Unreal Championship 2, has more of a campaign which I really had great fun with. I think if there was a game that I would recommend for a story campaign as an arena shooter, it'd be Unreal Championship 2. I think that game is fantastic. It added melee combat as well, which is always fun. Unreal Tournament, it's a game that I feel like I feel like, you know what, I'm into my old school 90s FPS. This is in that bracket for me. Why not pick it up? Because I feel like this could be a fun time, jumping back in and just killing things and jibbing people and, you know, and getting a multi-kill and stuff like that. But yeah, Unreal Tournament, I thought it was a no-brainer for the collection. It's complete with manual as well. Another title I totally forgot was on the system, so that's always cool, right? When you discover new stuff. I don't think Unreal, the actual proper FPS game, Unreal, got a PS2 release. I'm not too sure. Love to get that if it did, but Unreal Tournament was definitely a pickup for me. I think it was only like something like £2 or something. It was really cheap. But yeah, let me know if you played this one, and let me know what you think of the actual Unreal franchise, because I think it's a very underrated franchise. When people talk about, you know, 90s FPS, I feel like Unreal and Unreal Tournament get a little bit forgotten in there when it concerns like people talk about Doom and Quake and stuff like that. But yeah, Unreal Tournament is a great little arena shooter that I'm looking forward to jumping back into. Now we jump into 2 titles that are actually on our created collection list. If you haven't noticed before, I'm a big racing fan. If I've not said before, actually, I might not have even mentioned this. I'm a big racing fan, especially back when I was a teenager. I was really into my racing games. Gran Turismo, Burnout, Destruction, Derby, all those kind of games, just racing games. You know, the Forza games a bit later on as well. But this game on PS2 might be one of my favourite racing games of all time. It's up there with Burnout 3 for me. I think it's just fantastic. It took what Need for Speed Underground did, and I don't want to say did it better, but I did it differently. Now I liked where they went with it. It was really fun. I'm talking about a game called Juiced. I put so much time into this game. This game was so much fun. The customization was great. The races it was kind of street races but on a circuit, so it felt a bit more, it kind of had a simulation look but had like an arcade heart to it. It was just so much fun. All your opponent racers had their own characters and personalities, and there was like trash talk before races. And the best thing about this game that I used to exploit this game for as much as possible when I used to play it. You could do drag races, and you used to be able to do race for pink slips. You'd get your opponent's car if you won. I would tune my car up to the point where it was so stupidly, insanely fast in a drag race that I would just win everyone's cars. And it was just ridiculous. It was so much fun just to have everyone's vehicles and just be unstoppable in this game when you have like the best cars in it. This game was so much fun when you just climb the ranks, you know what I mean, and make your car the most beastliest, powerful thing ever. But yeah, I had to get this for the collection. It's on the created collection list. Now obviously it's going to be crossed off the list. One of my favourite racing games of all time. I know there's a sequel. Didn't like the sequel. The sequel took it way too far into the drifty side of stuff, into the very, very heavily arcadey kind of style. This kind of, you know, strikes that balance between that kind of simulation look and the kind of arcade vibe, but it doesn't go too far into silly arcadeness. I felt the sequel did, and the two games are almost completely different. And I didn't like the sequel for that, but Juiced 1 is literally one of my favourite racing games of this era, and I think this era of racing games cannot be beaten. Sure, these days you get like your Gran Turismo 7s and your Forza Motorsports and your Forza Horizons, but the PS2 and Xbox era of games, I think the racing games were the best ever, in my opinion. But that's Juiced. The final game of this video, Project PS2 today, is a game I've seen in numerous CXs, in numerous conditions. Awful cover, no manual, terrible scratched disc. Finally guys, I have found a copy that is not in bad condition. That is Soul Reaver 2. I loved the Legacy of Kain games back in the day. Legacy of Kain, Blood Omen 2 was a big fun game for me that I played loads of. Soul Reaver 1 was one of my favourite PlayStation 1 games ever. I still love that game. I want to get it for PS1 actually. I don't actually own it yet. But Soul Reaver 1 was so much fun. Soul Reaver 2 was a step up from that. It was so much fun. Seeing the Soul Reaver kind of look brought up into like PS2 graphics back in the day was mind blowing to me. Seeing Raziel in more detail was so cool. Love the artwork as well, Raziel on the front. Yeah, this game is so much fun. I love it to pieces. The whole franchise is fun. The last game in the series, Defiance, is probably a culmination of all the games to me, and I think that's probably my favourite of the bunch of games. But Soul Reaver 2 is up there, is one of the best in the series. The only game I've not played in this franchise is the very first Legacy of Kain Blood Omen, which is more of a Diablo-esque game. But Soul Reaver 2 is fantastic, and I'm so happy to report that this is complete inbox with manual. The disc is in good condition. There's a little tear in the manual, but I will let that slide for now because I think it's the best. This is the best I've seen the game look in numerous CS I've found it in. So it was a no-brainer. I was picking this one up. That is the Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver 2. I adore this one. So yeah. So overall, guys, I think this has been a very, very good Project PS2. Very selective, but the CX stores I've been to, there wasn't, you know, the very first CX store had a pretty good selection, but the other one that I went to in London had barely anything PS2, which is really, really a shame. But it was a very small store, so it was kind of slim pickings in that one. But I think I've done pretty well for myself in that trip to London. But yeah, let me know if you visited the very first CX store in London. Let me know what you think about it. Let me know what you think about any and all of these games in the comment down below. And as always, guys, let's continue to build a games collection.